Hey guys, it's week 6 of Immense Anon, and this week's topic is things we avoid as metaphysics. Um, this is a pretty broad topic. I'd have to say that there are certain things that I mentally want to avoid doing because I have this phobia, but as Cassie and Lauren have mentioned, sometimes I just try not to give in to the thoughts and fears that I have. I try to not let the phobia control me or dictate everything I do. But sometimes it's hard for me to do that. I know that when my phobia is pretty bad, when there's a lot of scares around me, like hearing people at work getting sick with a stomach virus, people in the extended family getting sick with a stomach virus, things like that, I tend to get more worried and sort of feel like there's just stomach virus germs everywhere, and I have to be super careful and just assume that there's viruses everywhere in order to avoid getting it. So yeah, those are generally not good things. So I'd say during times like that, I can't avoid going to work because then I wouldn't have a job. But when I'm at work and I suspect that there's been sick people there or sickness is going around the area, I tend to wash my hands compulsively, a lot. Um, yeah. I also avoid using public restrooms. Um, I avoid. Well, I mean, I try not to go out too much because there's other people, around doing things, but that's kind of self-limiting, so I don't really give into that a whole lot. I also agree with Lauren about not eating out that much, although lately, since it's been warming up a bit and it's officially spring, I sort of, feel like there's a less likelihood of people being sick with the stomach flu out and about, so I have gone out to eat last week and the week before that, and a few days ago I went to Subway and got a sandwich, and I guess those would generally be things that kind of haunt me later. After I eat the food, I as Lauren had mentioned, I get kind of just assume that I'm gonna get sick, and then once a day goes by and I realize I'm not sick, then I'm fine. But my phobia generally got really bad about 3 years ago. I've always been afraid of vomiting, but um, it didn't bother me on a daily basis or sort of impede on the functioning of my life until 3 years ago. I know that maybe when I was in high school or middle school, if someone around me threw up or I saw throw up or something, then I'd not be able to eat for the rest of the day and stay at home and wash my hands and avoid going out and avoid being around the sick person and sort of have panic attacks. But it would only last for the day, and I'd kind of forget about the next day. So not until the last couple years did it get so bad to the point the thoughts I used to get from just seeing vomit or being around a sick person in the past, it would only affect me for a day. But now it just sort of seems like I'm not exposed to vomit that often. I'm not exposed to sick people that often. But for some reason, I sort of act like I did back then, but every single day. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because, like, I don't know. I think when I started to live out on my own and I experienced quite a few bouts of working with people while they were sick, and then I'd sort of get that panic, and then it's sort of stuck with me, and now I just sort of fear the worst, just so I act like I have to do things to prevent getting sick. Other things I avoid would be going. I've mentioned this in past videos, but I avoid going to my in-laws' house because there's 6 children there and they get sick a lot. I also avoid eating food that's prepared by other people that I like. I mean, I'll eat my mom's cooking. I mean, I don't live in the same state as my mom anymore, so that's not really an issue. But I would always eat my mom's cooking because she's very hygienic, and I know that she's not sick. I have to know who's preparing the food and know if they've been sick recently and know if they prepare it hygienically. Otherwise, I feel like it's a threat. And I know that's a little bit obsessive because out of my 24 years of life, I don't think I've ever experienced food poisoning, like, that would make me throw up. I mean, I've experienced, like, I eat something and gives me a stomach ache, or, like, makes things come out of the other end. Sorry if that's gross, but I've never experienced food poisoning that made me throw up. And I used to eat out a lot when I was, like, a few years ago, like back when I lived with my parents and while I was growing up. We used to eat out all the time, and I never got sick from eating out. So why I avoid it so much now is probably just due to the way I think. It's probably not really making that much of a difference. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to think that my phobia isn't controlling me, but it does to some extent. It kind of wavers in severity. Like, I have lots of thoughts, like emetophobia thoughts, but I try not to let those, like, fears due to emetophobia control me. Although sometimes, like, I do feel kind of like overwhelmed by it, that I will avoid certain things, like going to people's houses or going out to restaurants when my husband wants to go out to eat. I also don't really eat out that often because it's expensive, and usually the food's not that healthy anyway. So, like, I like to save money and, like, eat at home and prepare it myself, and, like, save money and know that it was prepared the right way. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of what else I have to say. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. Other things I avoid. I wouldn't say that I avoid going on planes or driving in a car, because motion sickness isn't something that really phases me, because I don't really get that motion sick. I'm just not very prone toward it. And I also know that, like, if you have, like, something like the norovirus or something, it's almost, like, guaranteed that you're going to throw up, because it's, like, a microbial thing. Like, it's like a biological thing. But I feel like if I was feeling nauseous from being in a car, plane ride, or something like that, then I can control it. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like motion sickness isn't something that really plagues me. I also know, like, it wasn't until I started, like, about 2 or 3 years ago, I discovered that emetophobia was a real phobia. And then I discovered the IES website, and then I went there and read lots of things, like, like, trying to relate myself to other people, and I read that a lot of people were like, I avoid planes, I avoid, like, cruises or things like that, and I was sort of thinking, that's interesting, because I've never really avoided air travel, or, because of my phobia, because in the past I used to take planes a lot, like, with my family, like, to go places or to visit other family members, and I've never experienced being sick, like, from riding in planes or getting sick from other people around me. Probably the worst things I've ever experienced were, like, seeing, like, a puddle of vomit, like, at the airport, and then, like, immediately darting in the other direction. I've experienced that a couple times, like, when I used to live in, like, cities, like, in the subway, I'd see, like, a puddle of vomit, and I just, like, run in the opposite direction. But I've never gotten sick from, like, being, like, close to vomit, you know? Um, but yeah, I just know that there's certain events in my mind that stick out, um, like, in the past, where I've seen, like, random illness out and about in the streets or whatever. I've seen a couple, like, vomit spots on, like, certain subways, and I remember, like, for a while I'd avoid taking a certain train because I know that there was vomit there, like, a couple months ago, and that's just purely irrational. And I realize, like, consciously, that the way that my mind works is pretty irrational. Like, avoiding a lot of things, like, obsessively, it doesn't really do a whole lot, so why am I doing it? So I'm trying to work and control, like, the way my brain sort of, like, handles situations. Like, I understand that, like, nobody wants to get sick, and people go through reasonable measures to avoid getting sick, such as, like, if someone in your house is sick, you wash your hands before you eat, you wash your hands after you use the bathroom, you don't share utensils, like, just, like, basic things like that. But emetophobia is such a all-encompassing fear that you go out of the way to take all of that to, like, the next level and beyond, where it's like, I wash my hands all the time, I bleach everything, like, I avoid so many things so obsessively because I just really want to control not vomiting. And in reality, I don't really know if that does a whole lot, because I've been emetophobic, I'd say, for like all of my life. Like I've always been afraid of vomiting, but not until I keep reading this. Sorry, but not until like the last 3 years did it get really really bad that I actually sought out the internet to look up if there was an actual fear of vomiting because it was really presenting a problem in my life where I would like avoid things and felt just kind of like what's wrong with me, like why am I so terrified of everything, like I don't know, but yeah. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling here for a bit. I know I had other stuff to say, but it's not popping. Oh yeah, um, there's been quite a few, well, a couple scares of vomit in the past week at work. Um, Someone I work with had a kid sick at home who was vomiting, and then yesterday this person apparently threw up at work, but they claimed it was due to a new medication they were taking, and nobody else at work really knew that, didn't really suspect that she was sick. So if like it's just due to medication and she doesn't look sick and can still function, then I'm assuming it's not the stomach virus. But I guess you can never be too sure. But I'm trying not to let that bother me. It's like, okay, well, that instance of her throwing up was probably just due to her new medication, and her kid being sick at home throwing up also happened to have like a cough and a runny nose, and they're only like 2 years old, so like little kids, maybe their stomachs are more sensitive that they tend to vomit more often just due to various reasons and not necessarily like the stomach flu. So, you know, maybe that was that. Um, Also, my husband revealed to me a couple weeks ago that he throws up like at least once a month, but he probably does it like when I'm not home or like just does it away from me. But it's not because he's sick. Like he has some kidney disease, like a rare kidney disease that is untreatable. So basically he takes blood pressure medications that lower his blood pressure so it doesn't wear out his kidneys as fast, and that blood pressure medication makes his blood pressure like rise and fall really rapidly and drastically, that it makes him nauseous like every single day. And like but I know that when he throws up it's not due to like contagiousness, so it doesn't really bother me. I guess my emetophobia just takes on the fear of like germs, because I feel like that's the thing that presents the most threat to me. Another thing that I avoid is, well, oh, okay. A few years ago, I decided that if I could complete school, that I would like to be a nurse because it's nice to help people. I like the medical professions. I like science. I like learning about biology and stuff like that. But now I don't think that I should have to limit my future goals to accommodate to my fear, and it's just not right. I'd still like to be a nurse, but I mean, I still have a lot of schooling ahead of me if I want to do that, but to rule out that possibility entirely just wouldn't be right, so I'm not going to write that out completely. Yeah. Okay, I'm already at 13 minutes, 38 seconds. This has been rambling too long. I'm sorry if my thoughts seem a little bit broken. It's been a long day. I've been working, like, every day for, like, 8 hours, and it's been, like, wearing me out a little bit. But, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I will see you all next week.